District of Conservation is sponsored by CFACT. To learn more about our sponsor, head over to cfact.org. Thank you so much for listening. Welcome to District of Conservation. I am your host, Gabriella Hoffman. This podcast offers a sober examination into all things hunting, fishing, shooting sports, energy, environment, and the public policy surrounding it. And this podcast also specializes in original interviews that you won't hear elsewhere. Here's what I have for you today. We have a special episode for you all today. We are going to have a conservation roundtable with Cable Smith and Ryan Bassham, two guys that I've interacted with and known for a while in this conservation space. I've been on Cable's show. I've talked to Ryan a lot. Both are very plugged into conservation, and we're going to break down a few things today. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining.
You bet.
Thanks for having us.
Briefly, for listeners who are unfamiliar with you guys, talk about your affiliations and your background and how you got involved in conservation.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks, bud. So, I feel like I've been involved in some sort of conservation organization since I was a kid. My dad early on introduced me to different organizations like Ducks Unlimited, Safari Club International, Dallas Safari Club. And so it's just kind of always been a part of what we do. It's more than just about pulling the trigger and putting meat on the table. It's how do we really put a lot of thought into maintaining these resources and making sure that we're able to pass this down from one generation to the next. And so today I'm very heavily involved in Safari Club International, and I put most of my time and efforts into that organization in regards to conservation. But if you have a passion for hunting and being in the outdoors, it's kind of hard not to be passionate about conservation as well. So that's me.
Right on. Yeah. Unlike Ryan, I did not grow up hunting. I'm 41. I started hunting in my 20s. My dad's a huge bass fisherman, so I wasn't plugged in with any conservation organization. Then in my 20s, I started duck hunting and was like, God, this is way better than fishing. No offense, Gabby. I know you like trout fishing. And I like fishing too when there's nothing to hunt. So then I started getting plugged in with Ducks Unlimited. Eventually, 15 years ago, started the Lone Star Outdoors show and just never looked back. And so DU, obviously SCI, they're the title sponsor of my show. And then in Texas, we have the Whale Tech Alliance out of Lubbock, and they're involved with the show, and also Park City's Quail Coalition. So those are probably the main three that I'm plugged in with. But there's hundreds of great conservation organizations, and I guarantee you, everyone listening, there's one in your backyard. So really, there's no excuse not to be involved with at least one if you're passionate about hunting and like Ryan talked about the legacy that we're going to leave. I have kids, and that's a big part of what I do these days. And if we let these, I'm just going to call them the far left, the animal rights activists, steamroll us, then these kids, they're not going to have anything left.
It's important to protect the passion because we do see it slip from our fingers. Individual states like California and Washington state are prime examples of that. And it could come to a state near you because your state, I would say, majority is never guaranteed. It can always change, even though you have threats from the federal government at times in terms of your hunting access and things of that sort. But even the new frontier is watching out what happens in your states. And I want to bring your guys's, I would say, attention to what is kind of on your mind, either federally or statewide, a policy, different restrictions, or something even good. Because it seems like there's a lot of bad things nowadays in terms of conservation, what we're having to fight or put our attention to. But what is on your mind in 2023 thus far that could emerge as an important issue, good or bad?
Yeah, I think for me, this Assembly Bill 584, which is the Big Five African Trophies Act, and this is very specific to the state of New York, but I think a lot of times too often as hunters and conservationists, we go, oh, well, that just affects that state or that just affects that country over there. And I think we got to be careful with that because stuff like this can create a ripple effect that really negatively impacts us at scale. And so when things like this pop up, and this is something that we dealt with last year, this exact same bill, and it's frustrating to see it come back, to the forefront. But it's things like that, even though it's just for a lot of people, they go, well, I don't ever plan to go hunt Africa. I hear that all the time. Like, why should I care? It's like, well, you should care because this is happening on U.S. soil. And if they can start shutting that down, they're not going to just stop and say, okay, we won. We stopped importation of big five game animals. Then they're going to go, well, we've already seen it from state to state on black bear and mountain lion, et cetera. And that one kind of scares me. Again, it's just one more point of entry for these people that have a skewed mindset against what we believe. It's really damaging what the future of hunting can be here in the U.S. and what we hope it'll be. And another one that for me, and I don't know that this gets talked about a whole lot, and I don't have a ton of details on it, but I'm in conversation with guys over in Australia, and the potential of them losing waterfowl hunting of all things is incredibly real and scary. And that hits me because for SCI, I sit on the record book committee for wing shooting of the world. And it's like, wow, if a whole country, a continent can put a stop to waterfowl hunting, that doesn't mean that the U.S. is immune to this sort of thing. It's these policies that slip under the table and hunters and anglers aren't aware of that. It creates the wrong momentum, and these kinds of things are what we have to be aware of and cognizant of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for me, like over the past 6 months, we've dealt with in Texas, this movement by Texans from Outlions to really, I would just call it the Californication of wildlife management. And that's their mindset. The people behind that organization all were championing Beto for governor. This is not a joke. And then they're also in the same breath saying, oh yeah, we're pro hunting. Well, they have founding board members. There's like 7 of them on their coalition. One of the ladies protested the weigh-in in person at the West Texas Big Bobcat contest. Then I find out she financed the Project Coyote film about wildlife. They call them wildlife killing contests. We call them, predator hunting contests. These are the people they've put on their board, so that they're going to tell you that, oh no, we're not anti-hunting. Well, look, I'm showing you. Here's an anti-hunter sitting on your board. Yes, you are. Right. And then you're voting for Beto, which he's the guy who says, well, hell yeah, I'm going to take your ARs. No, screw that. We're not going to let you do that in Texas. So that's one thing. But that's kind of beating a dead horse at this point. I've talked about that publicly many times. Gabby, what's really on my mind right now, and I've seen Howl for Wildlife, great organization, posting this. I've seen SCI all over it, obviously. But in Colorado, like in 2021, they had a ballot initiative where they let the general population, God forbid we let wildlife biologists determine how we manage wildlife, but they let Boulder and Denver essentially vote to reintroduce wolves, the general population. Yeah. Okay, so they passed by 1%. Okay, well, that ship has sailed. It's happening. Now we're at the point where what is our wolf management plan? And they have one proposed right now, which I don't know all the details. I don't even know if it's public, but in the plan, it calls for, once we reach this population goal, we will have hunting and trapping. Okay. Well, as it sits, we have anti-hunting groups petitioning the current, I guess the government, whatever session they're in. Gabby, you would know. But they're petitioning to not have that passed. And so what they're trying to do is delay it, because apparently this summer there are possibly even up to four new or openings that will be available on their Game and Fish Commission. And the governor is anti-hunting in Colorado. We know that. And so who's she going to fill those open positions with? Well, people of her ilk. And then they will pass. I mean, this is just predictions, but you can connect the dots. Then what's going to happen is they're going to pass a bill for the wolf management plan that is not going to include hunting or trapping at all. In fact, it will just prevent anyone from taking a wolf legally in all facets. So clearly that flies in the face of scientific wildlife management. And that's why I think it's imperative that organizations like SCI continue to push the current Colorado and Parks and Wildlife Commission to pass this bill as it stands.
A slight correction there. Actually, the governor is a guy, Jared Paulus, not a girl.
Oh, sorry.
But otherwise, you were correct.
But yes,
I'm glad you brought that up, though, dude. Like, because I live in a state where we do, in my opinion, I wouldn't say that we have a severe wolf problem, but I've seen way more negative effects to the greater Yellowstone ecosystem than we've seen positive ones. I mean, you look at the wildlife situation here where we live now, and it's like there used to be 35,000 plus elk in the Paradise Valley, and now we're sitting at like 8,000, and it's just, and it's more than just that one example. I just threw that out there for an instance, but it's not what people think it's going to be, and I think that there's going to be a lot of regrets in this passing and them protecting it the way they're trying to do it. And they think they're doing the right thing. That's what's difficult with all this, right? Like they're passionate about what they're doing and coming at it with what they believe to be scientific facts. And yet we have some real life, like we've been going through this for, a couple of decades now with the wolf situation over here. And it's not been good. And so,
but
it's
Ryan, do they really believe that they have scientific facts? Do they really believe that?
I think so. Like in my conversations with them, they are so steadfast in what they believe to be scientific facts. Whether you and I believe they're scientific facts, because trust me, I'm on your team, bud. Like I don't think they do. I'm like, guys, This is fairy dust. But in their minds and in their conviction, they think what they have is scientific fact, because they're sitting there going, look at this. This right here is a positive thing. Blah 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 blah. There's more, fauna, flora in these areas and beavers and exactly. And so that's what they're looking at. And I'm looking at it from a totally different lens. And I'm going, no, this has been overall bad. This is not good. This has affected cattle ranchers and, sheep farmers, and it's hurt our wildlife populations. And I don't see that when you compare the two, the scientific data they're looking at versus what you and I might look at. I think that there's greater detriment to what's been done than benefit. So,
yeah.
I think the only thing that maybe changes Coloradans' minds is if their household pets get eaten on video, or some Ring camera footage will show that these reintroduced wolves will kill their pets. That's the only way they change their mind.
But they're not going to kill the pets in Boulder and Denver, and the morons that voted for the ballot initiative to pass. They're going to kill the good rural folks. That's whose pets are going to be killed.
Sure. Unless they make their way to the urban areas. You never know. They're highly adaptable. If coyotes have shown us anything, maybe wolves can similarly do the same thing, adapt to these more urban settings too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And it's much more, the human population density down there compared to where I'm at, it's much greater. So yeah, what is that going to look like? And I think what a lot of people fail to realize is like a wolf, I mean, it is like one of the ultimate apex predators. Like even around here, like they kill just because it's sport for them. It's not like they're killing wildlife all the time just to eat. Like that's not it. It's a game, and they're really good at it. And if they don't want to be seen or found, they won't be. And I think that the mass population of people that live here in the U.S. do not realize that. They just think that like, hunter's going to go out and shoot a wolf. It's, man, I wish it was that easy. Those suckers are tough, and they kill for no reason.
Ryan, people don't want to believe that. They choose not to, but it's true. I mean, they do. They will kill anything that's in front of them. They do not just kill the weak, the young, the sick, and the old.
No.
They don't care if an elk is a 350-inch bull. If it's in front of them, that's what they're hunting. They're opportunistic. They're going to kill what's in front of them.
Absolutely.
And they're damn good at it. But here's the other thing. Good at it. What is the biggest funding initiative for Colorado Parks and Wildlife? It's out-of-state, non-resident license sales for elk, mule deer.
Right.
The list goes on. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I was trying to look them up, but I wasn't quick enough. I think it's like $78 million a year, something like that.
Oof.
It's a lot of money. It's the biggest thing that funds their entire department. Well, you introduce wolves, and they have the biggest elk population in the country.
They do.
You've cut your elk numbers in half over the span of, let's just say, 10 or 15 years. Now you've cut your numbers in half. Well, you can't support those same over-the-counter licenses. So now you've just undercut your entire funding. And that's what those people don't realize. Oh, I love these animals so much. Okay, well, then why don't you let us pay to protect them and the places that they call home?
You won't be able to see them in Estes Park if they're decimated.
No, exactly. And that's the thing, too, because their argument...
You also saw the coyotes chasing the...
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, there was a recent video of the went viral of those coyotes chasing I think they were mule deer around on that golf course somewhere out west. We just imagine those are wolves, right? And they're chasing elk around, like in Estes Park, like you said, Gabby. That's what's coming.
Yeah, it's coming, and they won't be able to stop it. And the reality too is like, once they figure out where they can go and hunt, and it's easy because those elk haven't really been pressured. That's why it's so great. All of a sudden, like, they're gone. And if they think that, oh, well, we'll make up for those lost funds through people coming in to hike and to just do photography. Like, I do all that. You know how much money I spend on hiking and photography versus what I spend on a hunt to go and hunt some of these places? Like, it's drastically different. Like, I might spend whatever the fee is to get into the park, and that's it. Versus some of these hunts, I'm spending thousands of dollars. Like, that's what's actually meaningful to funding these programs for conservation. And that argument just does not hold up that they continue to try to spin, because they're going to say, oh, well, we're going to introduce wolves and it's going to bring more people here to want to see the wolves. No, it's not.
And those people aren't going to see a wolf anyway.
They're not going to see a wolf. They're just not going to. I've been into Yellowstone National Park. I bet I've been in there 36 times. You know how many wolves I've seen? 0. And maybe I was there at the wrong time, blah, blah, blah. But I've seen everything else. I've yet to see a wolf in that park. And they are everywhere. They just don't want to be seen. Right. So it's not like this huge attraction that people are going to get to come and see the wolves. It's not how it's going to work.
So based off of what you just said there, I think there's only one conclusion that you can come to, and it's an anti-hunting movement. Like, they know what the wolves are going to do. They know that it's going to mean less elk hunters. And that ultimately, that's the underlying truth here.
Sure. Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's a typical emotional response from that group of individuals. And, at the end of the day, I think you're right. I think the people that are really smart within that group, they know, like, tactically, that this will put a stop to hunting because of what they've seen it do where I'm at over the last, several years. And it's inevitable. Like, you start to have to readjust the tags that are put out there for residents and non-residents alike. And that means less hunting.
And then it means less conservation dollars ultimately. So they're going to bite the hand that feeds them.
Yeah. Right. You know what I've noticed recently, just from the interactions with and dealing with this Texans for Mountain Lions assault on Texas Parks and Wildlife, is how, and I guess maybe it has never been out of sight, out of mind for me, because I preach conservation basically for a living. But in Texas, we've never had to deal with it. But what I've come to realize is how well organized and how well funded these anti-hunting groups are. And I think for a long time, we as a hunting community were slow to react, and we were always on our heels. We're getting better. SCI has really done a fabulous job. Howl for Wildlife. There's a couple, 3-4 organizations out there that I'm a big fan of with SCI, kind of at the forefront. But now we're going on the offensive, or at least reacting quickly, which I think that's really our only hope, because, like I said, for a long time, we were always on the defensive.
That's a true fact.
Gabby, you're a big part of that too. I mean, who knows more about DC policy and has got a finger on the pulse of all of these bills better than Gabby?
That's very kind of you guys. I wish more people did. I don't want to be the only person talking about this, but it's not sexy enough in journalism to talk about this unless something evolves. But actually, one story I wanted to ask you guys relating to introduction of species, but not by ballot box biology, jaguars. I think I heard that Stephen Ranella talked about this, but this is like a several-year-old article that I saw in Nat Geo. What do you guys think about the reintroduction of jaguars into Texas? And they're going to go back and forth between Mexico and the U.S. Do you guys have thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. Don't do it. That's a horrible idea. You know what you're going to be doing is wasting millions of taxpayer dollars. That's what you're going to be doing. Texas is so fractured. Everything is private. It's if we were talking about millions of acres of federally owned land, I'd be like, yeah, sure, do that. Jaguars, with a management plan in place, right? Okay, we reached this population goal, then we're going to let hunters, trappers manage them. There's no way that's going to happen on private land. And speaking with big landowners in West Texas and South Texas about the whole Texans for Mountain Lions thing, those guys are going to kill them. You kill my sheep, you're dead. Shoot, shovel, shut up. End of discussion.
Right.
You know, that's just how it's going to go. So, no, it's a terrible idea. And here's the other thing. Texas, yes, jaguars existed here one time. Texas is the fringe, the absolute fringe of their habitat. Mm-hmm. You're reintroducing them into the, you know what? Put more jaguars in Mexico or central Mexico. Do that. Spend the money where they can actually thrive. Not just trying to get them back to Texas because it makes us feel good. Because at one time there was, you know, a few jaguars that lived here.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said without question. I mean, it is such a fringe. It's not like it would be, it wouldn't work. Like when you look at the biodome of everything across Texas, like Texas is a very diverse ecological system when you really sit there and look at it. Jaguars aren't going to flourish all over Texas. They never did. Like you said, it was on the fringe. And then when you look at Texas and, you know, like some of the different species that aren't there in as strong in numbers, like why on earth would we put the money into reintroducing jaguars in a fringe part of the state when we have seen quail number drops? We've seen eastern turkey population numbers drop significantly, on and on and on. Like I grew up in Northeast Texas, and I had all these great stories from my grandfather about hunting bobwhite quail and what the turkey hunting used to be. And that's all gone. Like, why aren't we looking at those species? And I'm sure there's many, many more, but it's the Disney character effect. It's a big cat. It is that sexy thing to look at and be like, oh my gosh, like that's amazing. And they're amazing creatures, but let's not force it into a situation where it's probably destined to fail and it just doesn't make any sense. And so, I think it's silly is the best way to come up with. I don't know why on earth anybody would want to get behind that.
Yeah, it would be destined to fail. No doubt about that.
It's definitely going to be discussed more, and I wouldn't be surprised if they somehow go through with it with this administration. Why not? Because everything is open now to do that.
Well, you know what we have in our defense here is the private landowners. You're going to have some that are like the lady that's on the board for Texans for Mountainlands. You're going to have some big landowners be like, yeah, introduce them on my property. Guess what their neighbor's going to do? That jaguar gets off your property, that jaguar's dead.
Yep.
Gone. Although now that if you guys watch Yellowstone, I mean, they're in hot water because of those wolves were collared. They'd probably collar all the damn jaguars. Be like, we know you killed it, you son of a bitch. and let me be clear. I sound very harsh. I love jaguars. I hope that they thrive in their home range, and that, you know, we'll just leave it at that. They're awesome. Yeah. They don't belong.
No, they are. I mean, they're amazing creatures, and I've seen them. Like I've been in the Yucatan and come across pumas and jaguars hunting ocelerated turkey down there, and they're amazing, and they belong there.
Yeah, right, in the jungle. Yeah.
Exactly. It's just a totally different habitat that they actually thrive in. That's why their numbers do so well where they're at currently, and why they don't do well in Texas, because things have changed. Like evolution has occurred. Like they just don't belong there anymore.
The perfect example, which is an animal that shares the same ideal habitat with the jaguar, is the ocelot. We have they think there's like 50 ocelot in Texas. That's really awesome. And I hope that they stay. But guess what? They only exist in like 2 tiny little areas of the state because that's their habitat. If you go further south, their habitat gets better. They're more suited for that. But they've proven they can't go further north. So, it's crazy.
It would be helpful if wildlife biology was not guided by Disney and more so by real science, but we can only hope that happens. For now, I'm not sure that's going to be the case, but if cooler heads prevail in the coming few years, maybe we'll get back to some sound management. Relating to pop culture and I guess the intersection of wildlife news, what has been kind of a crazy story that jumps out to you guys? For me, I think I sent this to you, Cable, when you were in Mexico, that they were having this big kind of funeral for a mountain lion in Los Angeles, eulogizing like P22, I think that was the cat's name, or P222 or whatever the cat's name was. And that really struck out to me as like, gosh, like the Disneyfication of wildlife, like aren't there better things that taxpayer money can go to? Is there something like that was kind of interesting to you guys, like crazy or fascinating or what have you?
That one blew my mind when you sent it to me, and I was in and out of cell service. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then you're like P22. I'm like, oh, that's that. Oh yeah. That mountain lion out in California that they worship. Right. No, I'll say this. There's not one that sticks out to me, but I really struggle with the mindset of the idea that these people value animal life over human life. And whenever something tragic happens to a hunter, where they fall out of a tree stand, or in Kansas, like 10 days ago, a guy, his dog accidentally shot him, killed him.
I saw that. That's crazy.
Rifle went off from the back seat. The dog stepped on it and went through his seat and shot him in the back and killed him. And and you can read the comments, but people celebrated that because he was a hunter. Like that mentality. I mean, look, I love all people. And while I disagree with anti-hunters fundamentally, I don't wish ill will on them. So there's some kind of mental issue going on with that mindset. I don't know. Maybe they've drank too many soy lattes. But
or fake meat.
I don't understand that. Like, how can you wish ill will, death on another human being? And it's disturbing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. There's not one particular thing that sticks out in my mind either, Gabby, but man, dude, I agree with you so much there. Like I probably live a life that a lot of people are like, man, like, you're wrong. We don't agree with you. And that's fine. And I disagree with a lot of people too, but like, at the end of the day, I can sit there and across from someone and be like, you're human. I'm human. You have a mom, a dad, brothers, sisters, kids, a wife, maybe a husband. I don't know. I can still respect you as a fellow human being. I just have a difference of opinion of where I sit in the animal kingdom and the hierarchy of it all, and my purpose within that. And if we disagree, okay, cool. I can still find love for you as another human being at the end of the day. You're right. Like the death threats and all the hate that we tend to get for having a different way of finding food. I often wonder, it's like, okay, well, are we going to continue to become the minority until the point where all of a sudden it's like, oh, they're a minority. We should protect those guys.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, is this going to flip to our favor one day? We're going to become such a minority. I don't know. And I know I'm not answering your question directly, Gabby, but it's just stupid thoughts that Ryan has every once in a while. So, but I don't know, like it is crazy. And
I mean, they'll throw a vigil for a mountain lion, and in the same breath, if you shoot a mountain lion, they'd be like, I wish it would have ripped your throat out. Like, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah, like that guy, the former ball player, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
What was his name?
Derek Wolf.
Derek Wolf. Yeah. He played for the Broncos.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's crazy stuff like that. I just saw too a girl, and my daughter plays softball, and so anyways, she was a softball player, young. This didn't even make the news, I don't think. But same thing, like there was a hunting accident, and gun accidentally went off and killed her. This is like a middle school aged girl, okay? And can you imagine the grief her parents felt and all that? And there were still people getting on and saying some pretty awful things. It's like this was like a teenage girl, guys. Like, really? Are we kidding ourselves here? It's gross. You don't see hunters out there going, oh, good, a vegan stumbled and fell at their rally and broke their neck. I'm glad that happened. We don't say that. We don't believe that. That's
really that happened. We don't care, because that side of the fence is always like, I always hear this, live and let live. Okay, well then why don't you actually do that? Because I'm willing to let you do whatever you want. Why don't you just let me live my life? It's not affecting you. I'm actually helping fund the things that you say that you care about. What are you funding this? Are you helping fund the conservation initiative? No, I guarantee you, you're not. You're getting on social media, putting a flag or this color, whatever it is, and saying, hey, this is the flavor of the week. I support this. Saying I support it, are you really supporting it? Like, no, you're not making a difference.
Right.
It's like, okay, I'm actually out there doing it. All you're doing is spewing hate and basing your whole world on emotions over science.
Right.
But speaking of putting your money to your mouth, SCI is having the big convention come up. It's in Nashville this year. Why don't you guys briefly plug in why people should attend it in your own words? Yeah,
it's gonna be awesome. Actually, Ryan, I don't know if you heard this, but they've already sold 5 times as many tickets, like day passes, as they did last year.
Goodness, that's awesome.
It's because of the location change. Like, if nobody that lived in Vegas was going to the show, right? It was all people coming from all over the planet.
Right.
Like this show, like anyone within 6 to 8 hours, like they're going to go make a long weekend of that. That's a lot of people there, you know, in all directions.
And in that geographic location too is much more accepting and you know, passionate about hunting and conservation. So I think, you know, that venue change was fantastic. But gosh, it is such a great event. Like I get to go to a lot of these events as well as y'all too. And it's SCI is my favorite because I think you get such a great mix of opportunity and experience. Like you can go and you can converse with outfitters all over the world. You can go and converse with different conservation organizations, even outside of SCI. I think it's a real opportunity to meet and talk with people, you know, even like Gabby or the executives at SCI and understand, okay, well, where are these dollars going? What are the things that we do need to be paying attention to? How can I, besides just, you know, putting money out there, how can I get involved in doing some things and be more active in conservation efforts? I think if you really go to the SCI convention and you look for those opportunities, you're going to find them. And that's more meaningful and impactful than, you know, other events that you may go to where you're just going to book a hunt or buy new products or whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're talking a lot about, hey, if you haven't been before, this is a great opportunity. Personally, I like reconnecting with people that you only see at these events, you know, because they live 1,000 miles away from you, maybe maybe in another country. So I think those old friendships and relationships, that's a big part of it. And then from a business standpoint, it's like, for me, it's like a gravy train of just, hey, who do I want to interview while we're all in this one place, you know? So those are reasons why I love it. And then from a conservation standpoint, like millions of dollars are going to be raised by SCI. Yeah. Well, they're going to be, you know, it's going to be because of hunters making donations, buying raffle tickets, purchasing things in live auctions, the day passes, all of it adds up. And then SCI can fund all of the things that are essential for us in this fight to protect our lifestyle and to protect the wild places and the things that exist there that we all love.
Absolutely.
And there's some great people headlining. Katie Pavlich is going to be headlining a luncheon event. She's great. I've known her for over a decade. Awesome lady. And she hunts, and she's one of probably the few mainstream reporters, commentators who goes hunting. So that's really cool that she's going there. You guys have lots of musicians coming. I don't know if I can come yet. Like, I'm going back and forth. I'm going to try to come, but I have another event conflicting that week potentially. So I'm going to try, hopefully, at least one day. But if I can't, I'll try to make it up sometime later this year. But it does look like a great event given the location change. And SCI does great work lobbying on the federal side and states. And I know they're going to be doing a lot more, especially going off of this event and be given the motivation to do it because of people going and supporting and seeing what they do and seeing that they're not just about hunting abroad. They're also protecting hunting here at home.
Oh, big time. Yeah, I think and that's one of the reasons why the name is Safari Club International, but we kind of distance from that and just go with SCI because that term is pretty old school, and I think it alienates people a little bit. They're like, well, I don't have money to go hunt Africa. Well, okay, great. SCI is doing stuff in your state. I guarantee you they are funding conservation efforts and certainly keeping their thumb on any possible anti-hunting, anti-Second Amendment legislation that's being introduced, and they are fighting that. So they're definitely just as involved here domestically as they are on the international front.
That's true. And I will defer everyone to connect with you guys on social media. You guys have great social media accounts. I hope people engage with you. They connect with you individually. SCI. Thank you guys so much for coming on the podcast to chat with me about what's trending, what's happening. And actually, I just got an update saying I don't have to go to this other event. So I think now I can get the clear to go to Safari Club in Nashville. Perfect. So that should be fun.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks you guys
for having us.
Yes, of course. Thank you guys. Come back again.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to District of Conservation. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you haven't already, make sure you find us on your preferred podcast player. We largely circulate on Apple, Spotify, and countless others, but those are our two big podcast platforms we want to push. Make sure you're subscribed there, especially on Apple. If you like the podcast a lot, go leave us some reviews. We'd be more than grateful to get some 5-star reviews from you guys. Moreover, we are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and a little bit on YouTube. We don't populate there, but connect with us on social media. Find me personally on social media. with blue check marks. Super easy to find, and I would love to hear your feedback and know who you'd like to see on the podcast. Thanks for listening to District of Conservation. Stay tuned for the next episode.